Hi, this is Lars from Borknagar, Solefad, White Void, Black Void, and a whole lot of other bands. You are watching Richard Metal Fan.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Richard Metal Fan Interviews. This is episode number 128, and today's guest we're talking to Lars R. Nedland. Lars is a singer and keyboardist from Norway. He plays with Borknagar, Solefad, and currently has two bands, Black Void and White Void. Today we're going to be talking to him about what got him into metal, as well as doing a rundown of his entire catalog. And so, without further ado, let's go talk to Lars. So what's up, guys? I'm here with Lars R. Nedland from Borknagar, Black Void, White Void, Soulfault, and a plethora of other bands I probably don't know about. So how are you doing today, Lars?
I'm feeling fine. Got my water here and everything, so
Awesome.
ready to go.
It's great to be able to talk with you. So I kind of like the format is I want to do like a rundown of your catalog as well as talk about like your journey as an artist from where you started to now. But I want to dive right back into the very beginnings. What were like the first bands that got you into metal? What made you want to be a vocalist and play some keyboards?
Well, I come from a home where there was music everywhere. My father's a music journalist, so he was playing all kinds of music at home. And I guess it started off with the prog, like the early Genesis, Gentle Giant stuff, King Crimson, that kind of thing. And then when I was about 8 or 9, I saw a picture of Blackie Lawless from Wasp in a magazine, with blood all over him and raw meat and all of that whole get up, the 80s Wasp thing. And that was just about the coolest thing I'd ever seen. So I took my bike to the city the next day, and I bought a cassette, good old fashioned cassette,
Yeah.
a cassette EP of Animal Fuck Like a Beast, the Wasp EP.
Yeah, it's a classic song too.
And yeah, awesome. And from there on out, I was really, just diving headfirst into everything that metal had to offer. So that's where it started. It started with Wasp, that 80s shock rock kind of thing, and then I moved from there to thrash, with Metallica and Anthrax and Slayer, of course. And I went from there to I found Death, the first Scream Bloody Gore album from Death, and and then the ball just rolled from there. When it comes to me as a so that was the inspiration part. When it comes to me as a performer, I played the piano as a kid, so I had like a basic understanding of music composition and how to perform. And when I was around 14 or 15, I bought a drum kit because I just wanted to play the drums. It looked cool. So I just started playing in the basement in my parents' house. And I started my first band where I played the drums, and I did play the drums with that band for a long time. We never released anything, on the label or anything. This was back when I was a teenager. But then I met Cornelius, who's the other half of Soulfault, the first band that I actually recorded a proper album with. And we were just two guys, so we had to do everything ourselves. And that's when I picked up my keyboard again, because I knew how to play the piano. So the reason why I started to play, keyboards in a metal band was kind of just I could do it, and we needed someone to do it.
Yeah.
So that's how it got
Somebody
started.
has
And
to.
yeah, and I also played the drums, and I also did half of the singing. So since we're just two guys, we can do a lot of stuff. Cornelius did guitars and bass and the screaming, and I did the clean voices, the drums, and the keyboards. And from there on, I kind of liked the melodic parts as a performer. better than just the rhythmic part. So that's when I mean, I did play the drums on Soulfault albums for a long time. I did play all the albums up until I guess Nedland Livescence, which was released like in 2010. But after that, it's just been vocals and keyboards for me. So it's been like, you know, some things I just did out of necessity, and then it just kind of stuck. You know, I kind of liked, you know, working with that melodic side of things, and I guess that's how the vocals came about too. That was just, I mean, we were two guys. Cornelius could scream, I could sing, so we just did that.
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing I've also noticed, which was pretty interesting on your page on the Metal Archives, you also worked as a director, and you've directed various television programs in Norway, such as Skapperen on TV2
Yeah,
and
yeah. The
Krim
thing is, I
Komisjonen.
yeah, that's Norwegian names.
Yeah.
I mean, my daily job these days is as a director for an advertising agency. I make TV commercials. But back in the day, I used to work TV, just directing TV programs. I was also a producer for a lot of years, so I still do that stuff. I still do like directing and producing things for TV and for commercials. And I kind of just divide my time between that work and my music work. So I have like my basic job is with this company that does like TV commercials, and I get like 2 or 3 months out of a year where I get a leave from that company, and I do like tours with Borknagar, or I enter the studio and I record albums with my various bands. So yeah, I still do that, and I also usually direct my own videos. So, for instance, the White Void and Black Void videos are directed by me, and also the Voices video from Borknagar, that's directed by me as well. So I do a lot of visual work as well.
All right. Is there like any differences and similarities between like directing like music videos and all TV stuff versus like creating music? Is there like differences or similarities between the two?
Well, yeah, I mean, there are different ways of expressing things. I mean, when I make music, it's a much, you know, broader scope of what I can do. I mean, there aren't as many sort of rules I have to stick by. If I do something connected to commercials, it's pretty strict, because um, you have a client, and that client has a product, and that product needs to be you know, put forth in a certain way, and you have to find, you know, the right way of doing that, and then you have to get the right people to get the shots right and light right, and you know, all of the things that you need to do in order to get that exact expression. Whereas music is much, at least in the creative process, I control much more of the basic creative process when it comes to music, even though when the basic music has been created and you start producing, and you know, at least when you start mixing things, and you come to the final point where you have to finish off the mixing and master it, then it's as pinpointed, I guess, as the commercial work. But yeah, it's you start with a wider scope, so to speak, when it comes to the music, I guess.
All right. And kind of like going into your catalog, I know the first thing I want to talk about is the debut Solefad album, The Linear Scaffold. What was the
Yeah.
thought process making the debut album?
Well, we were really young back then. We were like 19, 20 years old, and we'd been doing music for I guess 5 or 6 years, something like that. And we had all these ideas, and we'd found this basic expression that had like one foot in black metal, like the second wave black metal that was back then. This was back in, I think our first demo was released back in '95, if I'm not mistaken, and we recorded the Linear Scaffold in '96, and it was released in '97, I think.
Yeah.
And we had all these ideas, and we all of a sudden we had this record company that would, you know, pay a proper studio so we could sort of realize all of these ideas, and all the ideas that we brought with us was, you know, the accumulation of all the music that had been inspiring us up to that point, as well as, you know, that sort of youthful enthusiasm that you get from being able to realize something that's your completely own, you know, your own expression. And we also had, you know, a lot of inspiration from um, a lot of the Norwegian bands that had already started off back in those days. Like I had the first Emperor EP back then, you know, with the bombastic sounds, which we took some inspiration from when it came to, you know, the keyboard soundscapes and everything. And also the very first Cradle of Filth album, The Principle of Evil Made Flesh, which was an awesome album. And I love that to this
That's one of my
day.
favorites too.
Yeah, and just with that shrieking vocals that Danny had back at that time, which was an inspiration, I know, for some of the vocals of Cornelius. And we put all of this in the same huge, you know, cauldron, and sort of just started to make our, you know, strange brew like that. And we entered the studio and we recorded and mixed and mastered the whole album in 7 days, because
Wow.
that's what we got from the record company. You know, we got enough money to enter the studio for 7 days, so that was some pretty hectic days. But yeah, I still love the way that turned out. You know, it's youthful, and it has you know, it has its quirks and its, you know, shortcomings here and there. But I mean, I think it kind of still represents what we were thinking and what we wanted at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's still a great debut album. And when it came out, did you start like touring outside of Norway for the first time, or is it still just local?
No, we let's see, how did that go about? We did a European tour. I mean, Soulfault has never been a very active touring band, because we both have had careers on the side of music, so that kind of makes it more complicated to do long tours. But we did a European tour back in 1998, where we toured on the linear scaffolds. That was with Haggard and Tristania. So we were the opening act, and then there was Tristania, and then there was Haggard headlining. Yeah, it must have been back in '98. After that, we just mostly did like the odd festival here and there, and then as a live band, we went into hiatus for a good many years, up until we revived the live units. I think back in 2012, maybe 11, something like that. And did a few festivals here and there, and a short European tour again. But Solefad has always been more about creating the music and releasing the albums than it has been about touring. Even though, I mean, it's fun to play a concert every now
Yeah.
and then.
Yeah. And then kind of the next album is Neonism, and usually with the debut album you have like your entire life to write, and there's a lot of hype with the first album. When it came to making Neonism, did you feel like pressure to follow up the linear scaffold?
No, I mean, we were just so happy that we had the possibility to keep making music and get that released. And also we had so much creativity when it came to you know, the very start of Solefad, and we had this idea that the second album should be sort of an antithesis to the first album. We should just give everyone the finger, so to speak. You know,
Yeah.
that was back when black metal was getting kind of big, and a lot of people were really preoccupied with what was true black metal and what was not true black metal. And we were really preoccupied with just telling everyone to fuck off if they had this
Yeah.
idea that
Fuck
something
the
had to be
haters.
true. Yeah, just true. Okay, true black metal. Here's a black metal riff and some hip hop vocals for you. You know, so so we did that, and also we did that with the production with sort of a black metal production. So it's a weird album. It's a weird, production. It's a weird set of songs inspired by a whole lot of different genres of music. Very avant-garde, I guess, back in those days.
Yeah.
And it kind of worked the way that we thought it would work. I mean, some people loved it. A lot of people just got pissed off
Yeah.
because we were fucking with the whole genre aesthetics and everything having to do with black metal. We still said that, well, this is also black metal, it's
Yeah.
just us doing another thing.
Yeah. Try to stand out.
But yeah, we we got a lot of interesting reactions to that. I think I saved, we got some death threats from the States, I
Yeah, I've heard
remember.
about that. I actually saw
Yeah,
something on the Metal Archive saying when the album was released, the style was so far removed from traditional black metal that the band received a death threat.
yeah, that was funny.
Like, holy
I I
shit.
I, I still think I printed that email. I still think I have that somewhere. Yeah,
Yeah, they're
interesting
like, we're
stuff.
gonna kick your ass if you're not true black metal, man.
Yeah, why are you not half naked freezing in the woods?
That's like the dumbest shit ever. People are fucking idiots sometimes.
Yeah, well, the thing is, if um if you connect your identity so hard to a subculture, like a lot of kids did back then. They found something in black metal that sort of became their own identity. Then, if someone does what we did to the expression, that feels like an attack on who you are, right? So I can understand like that youthful frustration with someone fucking with something that you've found and that you think is your own and your identity, and something that you identify with. I mean, death threats, that's taking it a bit far, but I
Yeah.
do understand that people can get frustrated like that. um I guess as a kid, if you go through that, uh if you like a genre and you have bands fucking with your genre, that's a learning experience, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, uh, it's fine. There's no real animosity in that anyway. So
All
yeah.
right. I know in 1999, that same year, you actually joined Borknagar. So how'd you get to hook up with the band and get to know Oystein and everybody else at the band at the time?
Yeah, well, that was when we were putting together the live lineup for Soulfault back in '98. One of the guitarists that we auditioned was Jens Ryland, who was in Borknagar back in those days. And he wasn't a good match for Soulfault, so nothing came of that. But I kept in touch with him, and he gave me a call later the same year, '98, and said that they needed a new drummer, because Eirik, the original drummer, he had died. And I was still a drummer back then. So I was like, yeah, well, I'm sort of trying to cut down on the drumming, and I'm doing more of like keyboard vocal work, but sure, I can come to rehearsal and we can see how that works. So I went to rehearsal, Borknagar rehearsal, and I played drums. I prepared a couple of songs, and things worked okay. But in one of them, we had like a pause in the rehearsal, and we were outside just getting some air, and some of the guys were having a cigarette, and they were talking. Well, Do you know any keyboard players? Because we also now need a permanent keyboard player with the way that the music is developing. And I was like, well, I play the keyboard too. So how about you try and find a different drummer and I can play the keyboards? We talked a bit about that, and we knew Oscar back then, and he came and did an audition for drums, and I did a different audition for keyboards, and that's how it all started. So I started playing keyboards for Borknagar, and then um, Oscar started playing drums because
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to play the keyboards more than the drums back then.
Yeah, and tell me about making your first album with Borknagar, Quintessence. I love this
Yeah.
album. What was it like making this album?
Yeah, that was fun. That was a really cool one. We started rehearsing quite a few of the songs right away because Oystein had written a lot of the songs already when I joined, and I came up with a lot of ideas when it came to the keyboard parts, and we would stay after the other guys had gone home from the rehearsals and would just try out different stuff with keyboards and different sounds, and that's how we sort of picked up that sort of semi-Hammondy sound that you can hear somewhere on those albums. That was, you know, the beginning of what got much more pronounced as, you know, Borknagar developed, and how, you know, the keyboard expression developed later. So we did a lot of preparation to enter the studio, preparation in the rehearsal room. Øystein would fly over from Bergen to Oslo, and we would rehearse in Oslo because the rest of the band was here in those days. And then we entered the Abyss, the Peter Tägtgren studio in Sweden. So we stayed in a house. I mean, that studio is it's in the countryside. It's 1,000 miles from everything.
Oh, wow.
So, and it's kind of like just very small, just like a cluster of like 14 houses, I guess, the place that he lives. And I think he's bought like 5 of them because there aren't a lot of people living there, and they can't manage to sell it. So we had our own house. When we weren't in the studio, we had our own house. So I have very fond memories both of being in the studio and actually recording the album, but also just being in that house, drinking beers, listening to music, you know, just being a band together. Because since I was new in the band, I need to have that time with the guys to get to know them, you know, in a different
Yeah.
way than you do when you just, you know, prepare for recording an album. Just staying with the guys over time, you know, in the same place. So yeah, I have a good memories from that, and
Yeah.
that's goddamn, that's like 24 years ago now.
23, actually. It came out in 2000.
Yeah, but the recording was 99.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So
I know this is
yeah.
also the last album with Vortex until Erd. From what I saw, I think he left her was because of like an ultimatum from Oystein or something.
No, that was I mean, that was when Dimmu Borgir was taking off.
Yeah.
So there was no way he could do both bands, what was happening with Dimmu back in those days.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of like, for him, that was kind of like a no-brainer. I mean, just with the success that Dimmu had at that point, sure, we would have all done the same, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, no animosity between any of us. We stayed friends throughout the whole thing, and I guess that's
Yeah.
also why he came back later. Because
Yeah.
I mean, we had we had a lot of good times when we were in the band, and we thought that we had, you know, a lot of music left in us as a band. So that was a really good thing. It was nice getting him back into the band.
Yeah, because his voice is just amazing. I either with whether with Borknagar and of course those couple Dimmu Borgir albums he was on, like I think he's one
Yeah,
of the best metal vocalists and very underrated too, in my opinion.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and kind of going into 2001, when you did another Soulfault album, Pills Against Against the Ageless Ills. Tell me about like that. What was that like going from Neonism to Pills Against the Ageless Ills?
Yeah, that was yet another reaction to the former album, because I mean, Neonism was like batshit crazy and all over the place, and Pills Against the Aged Sales is kind of like a metal, punky, heavy rock album in a way.
Yeah.
It's much more, conventional when it comes to song structures and just the riffing and the attitude. So we wanted just to explore a different side of Soulfault. That was a fun album to write and to record as well. Yeah, there's some good songs on that. I still like that one.
Yeah, and I know also that same year you did another Borknagar album, Empiricism, because I know
Yeah.
this is like I think it was like the only time in Borknagar where it was released like like right after. Did you like start writing Empiricism right after Quintessence?
Yeah, I mean, we were really active with those things in those days, and also we had pretty good success with Quintessence, so we kind of wanted to ride that success into another album, and try and build the band. And that worked pretty well. I mean, Empiricism is one of the best-selling albums of that era of Borknagar. Um, and that's also, I mean, that was a very different album, because that was where we had the vocalist switch.
Yeah, you had Winter
Where,
Sorg and Tear.
yeah,
What was
where,
it like working with them?
well, Andreas, he's an awesome guy. He's a very nice guy and a good friend. We were in a band together for a long, long time. I also like uh, the other bands of his, both Wintersorg and Otyg, and Cronian that he has with Oystein. So yeah, nice, just through and through, nice guy, very musical, lots of really good musical ideas, fun to work with. Yeah, all around nice guy.
Yeah, were you like nervous putting it out because of course following in the footsteps of ICS Vortex that had to be a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I don't think we really thought about that so much. We were just preoccupied with our music, creating music and making that as good as we could. And also, it was a big success. It sold a lot more than Quintessence. So we sort of never thought that much about, you know pressure when it comes to sort of fulfilling something. We just went ahead and did our thing, and it seemed to work. So yeah.
Yeah. And then going into 2003, you did another Soulfault album in Harmonia Nia Universally. Tell me about like making that album. I mean, I think you got signed to Century Media Records. Which is of
Yeah.
course the same label Borknagar is currently on. How did they
Yeah.
find Soulfault?
Well, I got to know them, of course, through my work with Borknagar, and we recorded the album, and I was in Dortmund, and had a meeting with some Borknagar stuff, and I mentioned that we'd recorded another album, and they were just like, okay, if you're interested, let's hear it, and we'll see if this is something for us. And they did that, and they offered us a contract. So that was nice. I mean, that was a bigger label, so we got a bigger or a longer reach with the music. Also, that was a very ambitious album, where we had a choir, and we had a lot of guest musicians, and we did a lot of work to make it, again, a very different album from the former Solefad album. I mean, from a straightforward, like more like rock, punk rock album, we went to an expression that was maybe more gothic in a way, with these huge orchestrations and like bombastic parts, but maybe more in a gothic direction than in a like black metal direction. So that was a fun one to work with. That was like new. We were touching new ground on that album, and it always feels good to work with something new. So yeah.
Yeah, and I know that tomorrow is actually going to be the 20-year anniversary of the album. So, do you have like a different viewpoint about it now, 20 years later?
Is that? Yeah, it's 20 years. Yeah,
Yeah,
didn't think
tomorrow will
about
be
that.
tomorrow's the 20-year anniversary, March
But
24th.
tomorrow,
Yeah, March
really?
24th, 2003. That's what
I
Metal
didn't
Archive
know.
says.
That's fun. Yeah, well, Spike Rock did a vinyl release of that one last year, and I sat down and I wrote some liner notes to that. So that made me think back to the process of writing and recording it. Um, I really love the sort of raw ambition with that album. It was a difficult album to make. It was a difficult album to record, but we did that anyway because we had this idea of what we wanted to make, and we just pushed through and did everything in our power to fulfill that idea. And I think that works pretty well still to this day. So yeah, 20 years later, I'm glad we did that album.
Yeah. Yeah, and then kind of going into 2004, you did another Borknagar album, Epic. I love this album. I noticed there's like kind of like a 3-year gap between quit to empiricism to Epic. Did you really want to take time to like hone in your craft to making Epic?
I can't really remember how the time was spent in those years in between there. There was stuff happening, on different sides in our lives. I think that's when some of us got some kids, and other stuff was happening in life. So it took some more time. Epic was, I mean, that's by far the most orchestrated Borknagar album. So we sort of we went all in when it came to like the big orchestrations and everything. That was fun to do. I think today I might have done things a bit differently. I think I sometimes wish there was like a rougher core to everything because it's a bit polished. But it's a fun album to come back to and listen to. It's cool to have explored those sides of the band. So it's not an album I pick up and listen to very often, but I do it from time to time, and it still puts a smile on my face. I can remember the process, especially about writing the orchestrations and everything. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, I know that next year is also going to be the 20-year anniversary of this. It would have been cool if you did like a thing where you play it start to finish.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like all these songs, like even the Epic, even Origin, like all these songs are freaking heavy hitters.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, and I know that during the same time in 2004, you did a little project called Age of Silence, and you did the Serration. Tell me about like that project, because nobody ever really talks about it.
Yeah, that was. I mean, that's been like a strange sort of side project. I got to know Andy Winter from Winds, and he was looking for vocalists to sort of realize a project that he was working on together with Hellhammer. And he asked if I would be interested in contributing with vocals to that one. And I heard the demos, and it's like it was kind of different, kind of like that. And I was really into all that avant-garde stuff at the time, so I said, sure, I'll do that. And I entered the studio and I did the vocals for that album. And it's kind of it's a funny setup. It's Hellhammer on drums, and it's me on
Yeah.
vocals, and then it's Andy on all like keys and orchestrations and stuff, and then it was Lars, the old bass player from Winds, doing bass, And then some guitar players, to this day I've never met them.
Oh wow.
So I don't know the guys. But yeah, it was a fun thing to do. I think that was released on the End Records, I think.
Yeah.
But it was like it was like the strange side project thing. That was not like that was never a band that we intended to tour with or do anything like that with. That was more like, okay, we have some sort of extra creativity that we want to release into a different project. Let's do this and let's have fun with it.
Yeah, because you only did Acceleration and then you did the compilations EP in 2005.
Yeah, we have recorded a full album, another album with Age of Silence. So there's only the keyboards left, but that's taking some time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Because knows like it's still kind of unknown, and will that ever see like the light of day?
yeah, I hope so. I mean, everything's recorded. I mean, Hammer did the drums, I did the vocals. BP from Mother Mortem, he did guitars. So it's still, but it's just keyboards missing, and it's been like that since I don't know, 2015, something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know. You have to ask Andy.
yeah, yeah. But kind of going to 2005, you did another Soulfault album, Black. Blah, 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 blah. I can't even talk it talk see Red for Fire and Icelandic Odyssey Part 1. I think it was like
Yeah.
the first like concept album. What kind of inspired you all to make like a concept album?
Well, more than anything, it was we went back into our country's heritage. I mean, both linguistically, musically, and culturally. And we went to Iceland just to experience, because the Icelandic language is very close to the language that was spoken in Scandinavia uh, back in those days, back in the days of the Vikings. So we went there to find inspiration to write about that part of our cultural heritage.
Yeah,
And that was a huge inspiration to us. So we stayed there for 2 weeks. First in Reykjavik, and then we just rented a small little cottage in up in the mountains. These strange volcanic mountains that they have in Iceland. And we wrote two full albums. We wrote Red for Fire, and we wrote the next one, Black for Death.
yeah,
So those were written at the same time. And it was fun. Yet again, it was something completely different from what we'd done before. So this was sort of loosely connected to Viking metal,
yeah,
while still sort of retaining that basic Soulfault touch with the contrasting vocals and the orchestrations around, you know, the guitar riffs. That was a nice journey. I mean, both as a physical journey to Iceland, but also musically, you know, a musical journey into that landscape that we hadn't been in before with Soulfault.
yeah. And I dig those albums, like both Part 1 and 2 just really go hand in hand. I feel like it just like picks up where you left off.
Yeah, I mean they were written at the same time, so that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it just really just flows well into each other. There, I bet you there's like gotta be a lot of like research into making these concepts.
Yeah, but that's also, I mean, that's one of the cool things when we got a government grant to go and write that in Iceland. And when you're at the place and you're close to the nature, you're close to the culture, you're close to the language, um, it's really rewarding to just read up and dive into that historic part of your own, you know, basic cultural heritage. So it's a to keep it within, you know, the journey perspective. It's an inward journey as well, because what you're kind of doing is you're searching for your own roots, so to speak. So yeah, that was a rewarding process.
Yeah. And also in 2006 you did another Borknagar album, Origin, and this is actually an acoustic album. I think I've had Oystein on before, and I think I've asked him about it. So I want to ask you, what was sort of the thought process into or the idea to, like, let's make an acoustic album?
Well, we we thought that it would be fun to do like a contrasting Borknagar album, and Øystein, when he started Borknagar back like in '94, I guess '95, he started off with an acoustic guitar. I mean, that's where he started to write the riffs. So we thought it would be you know, an interesting idea to sort of go back to that basic idea and format. I think if we were doing that today, we would have done that quite differently. I'm not too pleased with how that album came out. It's okay, but it's a better idea than the actual execution of the idea, I think.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's like a footnote in the history of Borknagar, I guess.
Yeah, kind of like you guys' most like experimental kind of album.
Yeah.
Because you all just wanted to have like heavy ass beating kind of albums, but also have very melodic. But I think this one just it's really soothing and relaxing. Makes you just want to like hold up a lighter and just.
Yeah, I mean, it has its qualities, but yeah, it's not my favorite of our discography. I have to say that.
Yeah. Yeah, and then also kind of like flash forward to 2010, you did another Borknagar album. The next one, Universal, another
Mhm.
heavy album. What was that like? Going to making this album?
That felt good. That sort of felt like we were back into the groove that we wanted to be in, you know. And that was, guess that was the album that kicked off the, let's call it the modern era Borknagar. I
Yeah.
think the sound sort of developed in a bit different direction on that album that has just like continued since that. So that's sort of the turning point where Borknagar sort of becomes um, I don't know how to put it. We
Yeah.
went to the writing process in a different manner, and we did the pre-production in a different way, which sort of resulted in a more like coherent album, I guess. It felt good working like that, and also it was a nice contrast to the Origin album. So yeah,
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, and I definitely dig that. And also that same year did another Soulfault album. Forgive me if I butcher the title. Nedland Livescence. Tell me about like
Yeah,
making that.
the Norrøn livskunst.
Nedland
That's
Livescence. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Norwegian.
Yeah.
It's not strange that you cannot pronounce it. It's hard if you have if your main language is English, you know.
Yeah.
But it's Norrøn livskunst means the Norse art of living.
Wow.
Uh, so it took let's say it took the basic ideas from the Red for Fire, Black for Death albums, and it's sort of pulled them out of there and into modern day society, into being a Norwegian today, and we spun an album around that. So um, you still have these touches of like the Nordic sounds and some almost Viking metalish parts, but we still have like the contrast also with the Norwegian folk music, like Song til Stormen, for instance, is built like a Norwegian folk music song, contrasted with much more pronounced black metal songs again. we got some pretty fast, like brutal songs on that album as well, which was fun to go back to because it had been a long time since we did like some proper hard music. So yeah, so that was fun as well with that one.
Yeah. Next up is the next Borknagar album, Erd. I love this album. I think this was kind of like my introduction to Borknagar. Or tell me about like making that, because of course ICS Vortex is back in the
Yeah,
band. Like, what was that like making this album?
uh, that was really nice. You know, I love his vocals, so it was really really cool to be able to you know, tap into that vibe that he brings with his singing. And also, I think that album is a very natural progression from Universal. It just continues like further into that landscape that Universal sort of opened up for Borknagar. Yeah, that was a good album for us, and that was also a very nice springboard into the next one. I think
Yeah.
those albums, they flow in a very natural manner
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah, it's kind of like the evolution of Borknagar.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then of course the last Borknagar album, you not the last Borknagar, last Soulfault album you did, World Metal Cosmopolis. So, tell me about like making that album.
Well, there are actually two. There's an EP that comes before that. That's called Norröna Sången, and that's Cosmopolis Nord, which means Cosmopolis North, and
Yeah.
then there's Cosmopolis South. But the first one's an EP, and the
Yeah.
other one's a full
Sort of
album.
like the sneak preview.
Yeah. Well, they're contrasts. They're very different because the first one is very experimental. It has a very long proggy song where we have guest vocalist, which is Einar from Vardruna. And we have some electronic songs on there, and there's also like more of an noise sort of construction of a song. And then on the next one, we sort of went all in when it came to world music. We just wanted to do something completely different again, so we went to Tanzania in Africa. And we had some local musicians there, like percussionists and also guitarists. And we recorded a lot of things in a studio in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. And we brought that stuff home with us, and we did a lot of recordings here as well. And then I sort of sat up and I constructed the songs in between those two sets of recordings. So we had like the metal recordings in Oslo, and the recordings of all the African instruments, like the thumb piano, for instance, that you can hear on some songs. A lot of people think that's a keyboard. It's not. It's an actual thumb piano played by a fantastic African musician called Anania.
Cool.
So yeah, we just wanted to do something completely different again. So you have that sort of a mixture between African pop vibe combined with metal, black metal, and then we just threw in some Dutch techno just for good measure.
And being as it's now been about like getting close to like 8 years since
Mm.
the last Soulfall album. Have you started working on the next album? Like what's the status with that?
Yeah, yeah, we have. I guess we have like three like completed songs written, and then we have lots and lots of recordings of different riffs and ideas and stuff. So I met Cornelius a couple of weeks ago. He lives in Kristiansand now, and I live in Oslo. And we just set up that we're gonna have a workshop later this spring, and sort of just putting the pieces together, and then hopefully get the songs done by autumn, and then hopefully head into the studio and record maybe early next year. So it's been a while, but Soulfault is still alive.
Yeah.
There will be more music coming from there.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, is there any live shows in the works? Is there maybe a possibility you can bring Solefad to the States for a tour? I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, no, not as of now. My main issue is time. You know,
Yeah.
all the stuff that I do that takes time, and Borknagar is a touring band, so when it comes to the live activities, most of my time goes into Borknagar. Um, uh, I also have a lot of bands, so I need to do all the stuff I have to do in order to write the music, to record the music, to get the albums out. So there aren't a lot of concerts planned for Soulfault as of now. But you know, then again, we have played live before, so it's not impossible. But there are no actual plans as of
Just gotta
now.
wait for the stars to align.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and I know you play with so many bands from Solefad to like Borknagar and of course White Void and Black Void, which we'll talk about in a minute. So is there like a similar kind of like mind frame with all the projects, or do you try to like keep it like separate between everything? And how do you like balance it all?
I just do what I want to do, to be honest. It's if I feel inspired to do something, I just do that. I mean, that's how both White Void and Black Void came into being. That was just I'd written a whole lot of songs that didn't really fit into any of my bands. You know, I keep writing all the time. So I just found out, okay, I want to do something with all of those songs. I also do a lot of guest work. You know, I've done a lot of different stuff with everyone from Carpathian Forest to Rotting Christ. You know,
Yeah,
so um, I just I like being challenged. I like to be able to do things that I haven't done before, work with people I haven't worked with before, and also if I find some people that I work well with, like I've done with Solefad, like I've done with Borknagar, then I like just keeping with those people as well and keep releasing albums. So yeah, it just flows pretty natural for me, I guess.
yeah. And then going into 2016, one of my favorite albums from that year, Winter Thrice. Tell me about like making this album. It definitely has sort of like the cold wintry vibe when I first heard
Yeah,
this.
I think that was too that was also like a natural progression from Ulrich.
Heard.
Also just sort of honing the expression, just getting a bit tighter every time, I guess. And we also had a really, I love the fact that we managed to gather all the vocalists from Borknagar in one song on that one.
Yeah.
Uh, Garm, of course, who's a very good friend of ours, who was the vocalist on the two first albums, and then Simon or Vortex, and then
Yeah.
myself, of course, and Wintersword or Andreas as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, we had a lot of fun with that, and I still I still love listening to that song because it sort of contains the whole history of our band,
Yeah.
and also the fact that I mean there have been a lot of different members in this band, but we keep in touch with people. There's not animosity out there. I mean,
Yeah.
we're really good friends,
Yeah.
so it's
All
just nice
homies.
to have that on an album as well.
Yeah, and I noticed like on this album you had Bort Kolstad playing drums.
Yeah.
How did you hook up with him to play on here? Because he's an
Well,
amazing drummer.
yeah, that was through Simon, because when Simon put together his live band for his solo project, the ICS Vortex, he released an album. I can't remember when, many years ago. He found Board as a live drummer for that band, and that was back when Board was like 17 years old, something like that.
Wow.
He was just a kid. And when we needed a new drummer for that album, he was just the natural choice. He can play anything, right? So we took him into the band, and he stayed with us, and we toured quite a lot with him as well. And we're still really good friends with him and with the Leopards guys
Yeah.
to this day.
Yeah,
We always
Leprous
knew
is
because
amazing.
yeah, we always knew, and we talked about that pretty early. I mean, Lepers were really serious about touring a lot and getting as big as they could really early on. So we knew that there would come a point where he would have to concentrate on that. But we talked about that, we discussed that, and we just agreed on that. Okay, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. We know that that'll happen sometime in the future. Let's just talk about it when it starts to get problematic with like tour scheduling and stuff like that. So yeah, that was a good period. It was fun to have Bård in the band. He's a fun person.
Yeah, it would be cool if like Borknagar and Leprous did a tour together. I think both you guys could go well perfectly.
Yeah, we're doing some gigs together later this year in Mexico and what was that? Chile, in Santiago, and in Costa Rica. So we are doing some stuff from time to time.
Nice. And then of course the last album, True North. I love this album. Definitely one of my favorites from 2019. It almost feels like it was kind of like Winter, Thrice, and North are kind of like the twins in a way.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that sort of grew naturally out of Winter Thrice. That was also a really cool album to make. I I wrote more songs on that one than I did on the former albums, and also I did a lot more vocals on that one. So that was cool. Also got to um, do things a bit differently when it came to the recording process. For instance, all the vocals. Me and Simon went to Bergen to Oystein studio, and we just locked ourselves into the studio for a weekend, and we did all the vocals together. Me and him singing, dueling vocals. I don't think people are aware of that, but a lot of the vocals that you hear is me and Simon singing sort of to each other back and forth. It's like the opening on the album Thunderous. We sing every second line in the start there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had a lot of fun with that, and that's something that we're planning on repeating on the new album. That recording process, because that was really rewarding.
Yeah, you pretty much led me into my next question. What's the status with the next Borknagar album?
Yeah, we are starting the drum recording in a week and a half. So recording starting now, and I guess the whole album will be recorded around June, July, and then we're mixing August, September, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah. So there's a new one, and I guess that would mean that there will be a release early next year.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to that.
We are too.
And I'm hoping you guys come back, because I did see you all twice last year on the Devastation of the Nation tour. That was probably
awesome.
a great time. That was my first and second time seeing Borknagar, because I did like saw you all in Birmingham, Alabama the first time, and then first one day, then the next day you played in Atlanta, and then I saw you again. So because that lineup was so good, I had to see it more than once.
Awesome. Atlanta, that was the 13th of May, I think.
Yeah, you were right. And then it was the 12th. I saw you all
That
in
was
Alabama.
Talking about birthdays, that was my birthday.
Oh shit, I forgot. I would have been like, happy birthday, Lars.
So you've seen me on my birthday, and I see you on your birthday. Awesome.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Is there any, like, I hope you all come back to the States soon. I really need another Borknagar show.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get another tour in the States after the release of
Yeah.
the new album.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't take like 20 years between, like, because I know before that it was a long gap.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's a complicated issue touring the States, to be honest. But yeah, we made it work now, and I guess we have a possibility of sort of copying that way of doing it. That worked well.
Yeah, and I remember for watching you guys, and I remember a buddy of mine described you as like the Norwegian mastodon. Yeah.
Yeah, and we could be that. We're
Yeah.
pleased with that.
Yeah. So if you're the Norwegian Mastodon, that must mean Mastodon is the American Borknagar.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that gotta
I
work.
guess we started before Mastodon, so that would be the right way around, wouldn't it?
Oh, could be. Yeah, and kind of a little bit to wrap things up. I know you also got did the White Void and Black Void projects. Tell me about like that, because I almost feel like they're opposite. Like White Void's just really more, I guess, by the name. The name is more calming and peaceful, almost so psychedelic, whereas Black Void is just like in your face. Tell me about like making those projects.
Yeah, I mean the White Void album is called Anti, and the Black Void album is called Antithesis. So yeah, they are contrasts. The Black Void album was written as an antithesis to the White Void album. I think the White Void album grew out of my love for new wave and like 70s sort of occult hard rock. My love of like good melodies. So that's a much softer album. And Black Void was just a fun album to write as a contrast to that. It's like a mixture of punk and black metal.
Yeah.
Yeah, had a lot of fun with that, and I continue those bands as well. We're recording with White Void now. It's a slow process with White Void, so that'll be I guess we'll be recording at least until like September, I guess, something like that, on and off. But there will be a new album there, I guess, next year sometime. And I already written 2 more White Void albums after that, so, and 1 more Black Void album. So just line them up and record them as we go. So yeah, things are happening there as well.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm looking forward to that. And so in the end, to just wrap things up, I want to say thank you so much for this conversation. It was great to be able to chat with you about your history. It's just anything else with the rest of your bands you want to like plug, or anything else you want to say as final words to close this out?
Well, doing what I do, I also just recently did an album with a new band.
Wow.
That I haven't done anything with before, coming up, I guess, later this year at some point, called Ershetu, which is sort of weird mixture of, I don't know, black metal and South American, like ancient Indian inspired music. Like if the ancient tribes of the South Americas would have made black metal, it would have sounded like this, I guess. It's coming out on Debemur Morty records, same record label as that has like Ageless and Bluthaus Nord. So that's going to be interesting. That's something new. I can send you a message when that's scheduled, so you know when that's coming up.
Awesome.
So yeah, check out that as well.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, man. So everybody, Lars from Borknagar, White Void, Black Void, Soulfault. We'll see you next time.
Thanks a lot, man.